So is the Iran war ever going to be over? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because, of course, on a long enough time scale, the Iran war is going to be over. But when you get the sort of Groundhog Day feeling like, well, we're setting a deadline and we control the Straits of Hormuz, and then it turns out that the deadline's getting pushed back and maybe we don't control the Straits of Hormuz. And so then we have a deadline and we control the Straits of Hormuz. Then the deadline gets pushed back and we don't control the Straits of Hormuz. So we're sort of in the middle of this Groundhog Day cycle that I'm sure it will break. But I'm done making predictions on this because I've already made a jerk out of myself 10 times trying to, see what's going to happen 7 days from now and being wrong most of the time. So I'm going to roll back to an interview yesterday with Carolyn Levitt. She was on Fox News. Martha MacCallum is asking her about the details. And sometimes I prefer Carolyn Levitt tell me the story instead of Trump, because Trump talks in truthful hyperbole. This is the best this ever happened. Everybody knows it. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. Believe me. He always talks in everything. This guy was the worst president. I'm the best president. He had the worst 4 years. I'm having the best 4 years. We have the best military. They have the worst military. We're winning everything. They're losing everything. So you lose a little bit of nuance there. So forgive me for this being so long, but I want to play you about 2 minutes of this because I think this is as close as we're gonna get to understanding what's really going on, because the rest of the media is not going to tell you the truth. So just a couple minutes here from yesterday.
Does the seizure of two ships, as we said, they were Greek and Mediterranean owned ships with cargo on them, and the reports are that Iran basically seized them and then moved them into Iranian waters. We don't know what's going to happen to these crews. We're not sure where all of this is going. Does the president view that as a violation of the ceasefire?
No, because these were not U.S. ships. These were not Israeli ships. These were two international vessels. And for the American media, who is sort of blowing this out of proportion to discredit the president's facts, that he has completely obliterated Iran's conventional navy, these two ships were taken by speedy gunboats. Iran has gone from having the most lethal navy in the Middle East to now acting like a bunch of pirates. They don't have control over the strait. This is piracy that we are seeing on display. And the naval blockade that the United States has imposed continues to be incredibly effective. And to be clear, the blockade is on ships going to and from Iranian ports. And the point of this is the economic leverage that we maintain over Iran now. While there's a ceasefire with respect to the military and kinetic strikes, Operation Economic Fury continues. And the crux of that is this naval blockade. We are choking their economy. We are strangling their main source of revenue. They can't pay their own people. They're losing $500 million every single day. Karg Island is completely full of oil because they can't transport it to and from. So the president, the cards are in his hands. The United States maintains control over the situation. He has all of the leverage. And again, that's why he's maintained a little bit of flexibility with the extension of the ceasefire as we await a unified response from the Iranians to the president's very clear proposal.
So if Iran continues to use these small fast boats, which we know they still have, and obviously we've seen their ships that were sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and so their regular navy is decimated. So can there be a possibility that the president would authorize the U.S. Navy to take out these little fast boats the way that he has off the coast of Venezuela?
Well, the U.S. Navy certainly could. We've shown that we have that potential with the drug boat strikes that the president has authorized in the Caribbean Sea off the coast of Venezuela. As you pointed out, Martha, he has many options at his disposal as commander-in-chief. But again, these are two boats in grave comparison to the more than 160 naval vessels that the United States has sunk. We've sunk more than 16 of their naval vessel classes of Iranian warships. I mean, their traditional and conventional navy has been completely destroyed. They were the most lethal navy in the Middle East. And again, now they sit at the bottom of the ocean as the United States Navy is stronger than ever. So yes, the commander-in-chief has a number of options at his disposal. But right now, the blockade continues to be massively effective and inflicting maximum leverage and economic pressure on the regime right now.
All right. Now, my problem here is I just don't have any patience. I would make a terrible Jedi. The Jedi Council would never accept me, even if they caught me at a young age. Because I think what we might have to do here is just wait another 24, 48 hours till the oil starts piling up. We can wait them because that's what a blockade does. It's like the old, when you're reading the history books about sieges. We don't do sieges anymore. We don't have walls around cities anymore. But this is sort of the same equivalent. You just starve them out for resources. You cut off all their trade with the outside world. And eventually life gets so miserable for the people within the siege that they cut a deal, that they give up, they surrender. So it's so hard to wait. And especially it's hard to wait after we've already been doing this for 6 weeks, almost 7 weeks. And we're all kind of getting to the end of the first little deadline. But a lot of people are worried about the economic impact of this. Other people are worried about the political impact of this. If we don't get this wrapped up soon, this is going to be an albatross around your neck when it comes to the midterms. So I feel you on that one. I would like for this to be over as soon as possible. Is that going to happen? I am less than 50% until we can get a guy wearing pants. As long as we're dealing with an Ayatollah, as long as we're dealing, and I'm not making fun of the guy's dress. I'm not making fun of the guy's religion. I'm making fun of his preferred method of statecraft. As long as we have someone who wants a theocracy, as long as we still have the theocracy that was previously there, the structure still running the country, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps still running the country. As long as that's going on, count me as a skeptic. I don't think we're going to get a peace deal. I think we're going to have to blow more stuff up. Should we go for the power plants and water? Man, I don't know if we should go that far. I wouldn't have started the bombing in the first place, so count me out. I'm no military strategist. But I do know that if I can muster a little bit of patience, and the American people can muster a little bit of patience, this blockade might do the trick. It's done it in wars past. It's worked plenty of times throughout history. I just hate finding out the hard way, don't you? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur. He is a Homeland Security professor at Columbia Southern University. He'll tell us more about the X's and O's of how we can win this thing. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Breaking news. There's an active shooter seen at the Mall of Louisiana in Baton Rouge. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm familiar with that mall. It's not actually in Baton Rouge. It's down I-10. I think it's technically in Gonzales, which is a suburb of Baton Rouge. But it's huge, and the governor of Louisiana has already tweeted out, or X'd out, whatever we call it. He says, I'm aware of the active shooter seen at the Mall of Louisiana. I'm in coordination with the law enforcement, and we will update as we know more. Please avoid the area. Sharon and I are praying for those affected and are grateful for a quick response by our law enforcement officials. Massive police response underway. If you want to go look at your social media feed, you can see a bunch of on the street neighbors over here showing you videos of cops showing up. I'm watching a guy put on his flak jacket right now. And in the video I'm watching, there's already 5 SUVs, Baton Rouge SUVs pulled up there. Half are sheriff, half are cops. So it's a mixed response. And 6 people hospitalized is the only word I have on casualties. So I don't know anything about deaths versus injuries. I don't know if the shooter's been taken out. As far as I can tell, I'm looking at a video from 6 minutes ago, and this is still an active situation. Whoa, there's another view with now there's 12 cars there. That's the one from 6 minutes ago. So that's some breaking news. On top of what you just heard from Donald Trump, he made a major announcement on drug prices. You heard that in real time here on WBAP. Stay put. I'm going to check up on both of these top headlines. I'll let you know about what's going on with the active shooter in Baton Rouge, and you'll hear about it as soon as we get back on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We still have an active shooter situation in Baton Rouge at the Mall, Louisiana. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Here is the latest of what I picked up during the break. Some people have put together the timeline here, where witnesses are saying at around 1:30 our time, shots fired near the food court at the Mall of Louisiana in Baton Rouge. 1:45, you see the sheriffs and Louisiana State Police show up, Baton Rouge Police as well. At 2:01, Our Lady of the Lake, someone posted from there that they're preparing for a mass casualty event. This is so cool that you get reports from all over the place, just barfing the little tidbit they know on social media, and other people are putting it together. At 2:10, it was reported that 6 victims had been transported by EMS. 2 are in critical condition. 2 suspects are being sought. Actually, the verbiage is 1 to 2 suspects being sought. So what that really means is 2. The only description we have is one was wearing a mask and a light-colored hoodie on Bluebonnet Boulevard, which is right there. That's the exit. At 2:12 was the tweet from Governor Jeff Landry that I read you in the last segment. I'm aware of active shooters situation seen. Please avoid the area. Yada, yada, yada. The Attorney General has also tweeted about it, but no new information is housed in that. Now, anecdotal reports, which means this hasn't been confirmed, this hasn't gone through all the verification process, but sounds correct. Some people who were actually at the scene are saying this wasn't an active shooter, like it's one guy that's running around shooting people like a crazy person. It was 2 people shooting at each other. How? Pull it up. So that's what we're looking at now. Luckily, there's no fatalities. We have casualties as far as injuries going. 6 people, 2 are listed as critical, but this is in like the first 30 minutes of a report. So if that's the situation, then you have been made accustomed that these things change quite a bit from time to time. So we'll be monitoring this for you and let you know as soon as some new information comes up. All right, 800-288-9227. My next guest, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur, coming back on the James Show to talk about some X's and O's of the Iran war. Welcome back, Dr. Jeffrey. And the problem that a lot of us have is we keep being told that the Iranian Navy is completely decimated. They're totally inert, but they can still block the Straits of Hormuz. Write that for us. Singletons? Dr. Brodeur, is the blockade enough to bring Iran to its knees and back to the peace table? All right, Dr. Jeff Rodur, thank you for taking time. Update us on the Iran war situation. I think we're going to have another conversation about 48 hours, or probably on Monday. That'll be a lot different. We're going back to Baton Rouge, where local law enforcement's answering questions about the active shooter situation.
That we need. Second thing, anybody in the community that has videos, cell phones are everywhere. So if you have cell phone video that you might be thinking interest, please reach out to us. We have links that we can send you where you can send us those cell phone videos anonymously. And you can remain anonymous. Give us those cell phone videos. Thank you all very much, and we'll update y'all again as soon as we get more information.
Thank you.
Okay, you've been listening live as officials in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, provide an update to the public about an active shooter situation happening at the Mall of Louisiana. This all unfolding within the last hour or so. We are learning from our sister station, Fox 8, that there are at least 10 people who have been hurt, 2 of them in critical condition. And the shooting is believed to have happened near the food court inside of the mall. But at this point, sources don't believe there is an active shooter threat anymore. At this point, the preliminary investigation is revealing that this involved 2 groups of people, but those groups of people have not been necessarily caught yet. They're still looking and searching the surrounding area around the mall to try and make an arrest of suspects related to this case. So,
all right, so that is KTVU Fox Channel 2 reporting on the what sounds like it's no longer an active shooter situation. And you know that can be kind of misleading, because what we think about active shooter, we think about a school shooter going in and shooting up the place, or the guy in Aurora that went into the theater and shot up the place. Just some crazy guy that thinks, I'm going to do a mass casualty event before I kill myself or get caught. But the reports from the people on X were telling you, no, this wasn't an active shooter. This was 2 groups shooting at each other. And now that you waited about 30 minutes into this story, that has been confirmed. This is 2 goobers shooting at each other. Probably the same silly old street violence that you see predicating most of the shootings that happen across your local news channel. But the good news out of this, if you can call it good news, no deaths. There's 10 reported injured now, 2 critical, and the situation is now no longer an active shooter situation. I'll continue digging into this and get you updated more on the sort of active shooter, the shooting that just happened at the mall in Baton Rouge. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. You're about to find out not all mass shootings are created equal. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Because the internet blew up right around the time the James Show was starting, and I hadn't read the story, and it wasn't settled yet, so I wasn't going to start the show with it. But there has been a mass shooting at a mall in Baton Rouge. We're close to Baton Rouge. It's called the Mall of Louisiana. It's a big mall. It's not in a terrible part of town. It's in a nice little suburb, nice little neighborhood. But the report was active shooter at the mall. So you think, some guy, some nutbag got a gun and went out and started murdering people indiscriminately. And we've got ourselves a nice, good, scary gun control hammer to bludgeon our political opponents with. This is going to be great. And then you find out it's not an active shooter situation. It's two knuckleheads shooting at each other. So now we can't use that to support the narrative. That actually makes our narrative look bad. So expect this to be dropped before you eat dinner tonight. 10 injured, 6 were transported to the hospital via EMS, 2 in critical condition. The other 4 went through private conveyance. No deaths reported yet. And the situation is, while not resolved, it is no longer being called an active shooter situation. This is Marty in Fort Worth on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, Marty, go.
How you doing? So I got a question for you. When did we stop calling them gang shootings?
Well, you and I call them gang shootings. That is so perfect. You're right. It used to be called gang shootings, and that's not even in the lexicon anymore. Good catch there, Marty.
I'm a retired cop, so we used to call them gang shootings all the time.
Well, the sad part is I was already in talk radio when the newspapers and TV stations stopped putting the racial descriptions on criminals, if and only if they were black. They still do it for white people. And I remember talking about this because I was on the radio in New Orleans when this happened there. And I reached out to the newspaper. Hey, we're talking about this on our radio show. Can we get someone from the newspaper to explain your new position? Because they had written an editorial explaining it. It's like, can I get a guest? And they said no. It's like, you don't even want to explain yourself? And they're like, no, we have the explanation on our website. If you need to refer to that, go to the, blank.com. They didn't even want to explain themselves. So, yeah, and you and I know why they do it, Marty, because if they continue to do it, there's no way they could make the case to the black community that the black community needs to be worried about what white people are doing, or white people are oppressing them, or white people are hurting them, or white people are committing acts of violence against them. The overwhelming perpetrators of crime on black people are other black people, and that's sad, but that's not going to get any Democrats' votes.
Right. No, I came from a state that's out west, and we had the issues with the African Americans, but also with Hispanics. And I'm Hispanic, so I actually joined the police department to try to help my community out and be a voice for them. But I don't like that we have to be walking on eggshells because we don't want to call things what they are. And this is more than likely going to be a gang. I don't know the particulars, but it has all the earmarks of a gang shooting.
Yeah, or just street thugs being idiots. Yeah. It's probably kids. It's probably people that are in their late teens or early 20s. Of course, that's another one of the little nomenclature tricks that they use. They call them teens now. Yes, it was a mob of teens that went into a 7-Eleven and knocked everything over and ransacked the store. Yes, it was a mob of teens. Because number one, they weren't all teenagers. Some of them were in their early 20s. And number two, there was another more specific identifier you could use on that group that they all actually did have in common. But I don't know what the point of that is other than political, because it's not helping the community. It's not helping them diagnose what their problems are and therefore getting to the solutions. It's just dividing us and perpetrating. It's the same thing the Southern Poverty Law Center did. There is the demand for racism far outstrips the supply. So you've got to come up with some new ones. You've got to invent some supply. All right, good catch. That's Marty in Fort Worth knocking it out of the park on the James Show. Yeah, we'll get some more updates on this shooting in Baton Rouge, but I think they've just about got that wrapped up as silly and trivial. I'm not. It feels weird, almost like I'm minimizing it. But my frustration comes because 10 people just got shot in a mall in Baton Rouge, and the gun crowd that's so concerned about mass shootings at all times is going to drop this like a bad habit. Remember last week I was playing you audio from David Hogg, one of the kids from Parkland, who was he wasn't at school that day, but after the Parkland school shooting, he's become a media figure. He was on CNN last week, 7 years after his school got shot up. Why? Because he became an anti-gun activist, and he totally fits the narrative. Do you think in 7 years we're going to have one of the witnesses, victims, or people adjacent to this shooting be on CNN? If the answer is no, why is that? 800-288-9227. Sting 3.0 coming to the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory on May 10th. Get tickets and information now at livenation.com. And you can listen to the WBAP Morning Show for your chance to win a pair of tickets. Coming up next, more on the fallout from the indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, we get a quick update on Iran. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. The news is swirling today. We were talking about the latest on the Iran situation. Then Donald Trump interrupted, was speaking from the Oval Office with a whole bunch of people standing behind him. He signed some new extra executive orders about drug prices. Now we have the update on the Baton Rouge mass shooting at the Mall of Louisiana. Turns out it's not an active shooter, some crazy guy going off, probably with an assault rifle. Now it's two idiots. Your standard issue street violence is what it looks like here. None of that's confirmed yet. And then I was just checking in because Donald Trump, after he made his statement about 50 minutes ago, has been talking to reporters since then. I was like, let me drop in. I've been watching this Baton Rouge stuff. Wonder what the old president's talking about. Well, I thought you'd like to hear this one answer. He was asked about the situation, of course, with the Iran war, and we get a sense of sort of a new timetable here.
On the war with Iran, how long are you willing to wait until you get a
Don't
unified
rush me.
response?
Don't rush me, Jeff. Guys like you want to say, oh, so we were in Vietnam like for 18 years. We were in Iraq for many, many years. We're in for I don't like to say World War II because that was a biggie, but we were 4.5, almost 5 years in World War II. We were in the Korean War for 7 years. I've been doing this for 6 weeks. And their military is totally defeated. They're outside of the little wise guy ships. I call them the wise guy ships, the little boats that they have running around with guns in them. We'll take them out too when we see them. But their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is gone, all of their anti-aircraft machinery is gone. Maybe they loaded up a little bit during the 2-week hiatus, but we'll knock that out in about 1 day if they did. We've done an amazing job. Their leaders are gone. The leaders are all gone. Part of the problem is that, that's why I can't really answer your question. They have all new leadership and they're fighting like cats and dogs for who's going to control. Because we've created a real mess for them, but they've created a mess for the world over the last 47 years. They've killed a lot of our people. When you see a soldier, a young person, or now an older person, but a person without legs or without arms or with a face that got blown to pieces, most likely it was from Iran. That was Soleimani, who I killed. Soleimani loved the roadside bomb. He was an evil genius. He was a brilliant general. Probably we wouldn't be as far advanced had I not taken him out. That was the beginning of it all. And then I ended the Obama horror show. The nuclear transaction that he made was horror. It gave him a road to the, you call it, what the deal that he did, the Iran nuclear deal, was so bad. It gave him a road to a nuclear weapon. And I will tell you, I deal with them. You cannot give Iran a nuclear weapon. This is all about a nuclear weapon. They cannot have the nuclear bomb, and they're not going to have the nuclear bomb. So we've taken out their military. We've hit about 75% of our targets. We stopped a little early because they wanted to have some peace. And we have a blockade that's 100% effective. And they're getting no business. And as you know, they're not doing well economically, financially. They're not doing any business because of the blockade. They want to make a deal. We have been speaking to them, but they don't even know who's leading the country. They're in turmoil. They're in turmoil. So we thought we'd give them a little chance to get some of their turmoil resolved. But, and I hope the fake news, people like you, I hope the fake news are going to be able to write about it accurately, because when you say, oh, they're fighting very well, they're not fighting well. They've been obliterated, Jeff, obliterated. 159 ships are in their Navy. You know how many ships are at the bottom of the sea, Jeff? 159.
All right, that's the part I wanted you to hear. Really? That's a bold statement. So what are these non-Navy ships that are shooting at boats in the Straits of Hormuz? What's going on there? Because that math doesn't math. They've got some boats somewhere, and they're stopping boats in the Straits of Hormuz. It happened yesterday. So we'll see. But you can see the timeline now is in that the bad taste in your mouth that was left from COVID. Because what did COVID start as? The whole pandemic shutdown. start as 15 days to slow the spread. And then after 15 days, all right, so can we go back to normal? Can we open all our businesses? No, we're just going to extend it till Easter, till the end of the month, till the end of next month, till the end of the summer, till the end of the year. And the goalposts kept getting pushed back until we just stopped complying. So this is a masterclass on how to put a frog in a pot of water and turn it on and let it boil slowly. Yeah, no, this isn't going to last. This isn't another forever war. This is going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And then after 4 to 6 weeks, it's like, bro, we were in Vietnam for like 20 years. This is nothing. Uh-oh. Don't like the sound of that. Coming up next on the James Show, local Congressman Brandon Gill is going to be on. He's got a proposal that's getting a lot of attention because he wants to make the public Muslim call to prayer banned, which, okay, I can kind of see that. But also, I bet you he's going to have some strong opinions on the indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So you'll hear about both of those coming up next from Congressman Brandon Gill on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, Congressman Brandon Gill is finally on the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. You've been hearing his sound bites pretty much since he's been in office. I think the most recent one I played from him this was just like 3-4 days ago. Brandon Gill.
The whole reason why people immigrate into the United States, because our culture, I believe, in many ways is superior to other cultures across the globe.
Hey, that's a good one to start with. Brandon Gill, welcome to the James Show. Yeah, I noticed you caught a lot of flack for that, but only by people who were calling you names, saying you were mean or you were awful. No one actually answered, if we're not better than they are, explain yourself. How is our culture not better? If sending these people back to where they came from is a humanitarian crisis, wouldn't that necessarily mean our culture has succeeded? Brandon Gill, you also got some attention recently because you have a proposal. I don't know if you put pen to paper yet, but at least a discussion on banning the public Muslim call to prayer. Explain yourself on this one. Well, I've already heard this, but explain to the people listening how this isn't a First Amendment violation. Well, I love the church bells argument because it's so weak. We're talking with Congressman Brandon Gill. And, for the Muslim call to prayer, this is a specific call to a specific prayer to a specific God with the specific religion's rituals that are forced upon everyone, whether they want to hear it or not. Conversely, the church bells tell you it's 4:00. I mean, it's not even a religious exercise. There's nowhere in the Bible where it's like, hey, can you ring the bell at the top of the hour? Make sure you do it as many times as the hour is. It's not even a religious ritual. Well, Brandon Gill, I love the obvious cognitive dissonance that happens when they talk about American culture. They talk about the 1619 Project or whatever. They gripe that a foreign people of a different race came over here in the 1600s and the 1700s, brought their own religion, brought their own language, made their own communities, didn't assimilate, eventually outnumbered and supplanted the native population. And it was called colonizing when we did it, and it was evil. Yet when it happens to us, we're racist again for speaking out against it. It seems like we can't win, Brandon. All right, Brandon Gill, can I commandeer you for one more segment? I'm out of time here, and I haven't asked you about either the Iran War or the Southern Poverty Law Center indictment. Can I get you a little bit more of your time here? All right, we'll continue with Congressman Brandon Gill. He's a Republican out of the Denton area. And of course, you just heard we're going to talk about the Iran War and the indictments on the Southern Poverty Law Center. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. We're continuing with Brandon Gill, local congressman on the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Brandon Gill, we have the Iran war still going on. Nothing about a war powers resolution is making it through. Shouldn't the Republicans put something together and pass something affirmatively to make it happen? And the other big story that I couldn't let you go without talking about is this indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center. I don't think a lot of people understand how big of a deal this is unless you swim in political circles a lot, because there's so many sound bites and storylines that the Southern Poverty Law Center is intertwined with. In fact, I have a bunch of sound bites I'm going to play in the next segment after we're done with you, Brandon, where Joe Biden said he predicated his entire campaign for president on Charlottesville, which was funded on both sides by the Southern Poverty Law Center, which, I mean, is how much of this stuff that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years is just astroturfed from the Southern Poverty Law Center, Brandon? Well, I think the important message out of this is probably going to be missed by most of the people on Team Blue. And it's actually good news. It turns out we really don't have a problem with white supremacy or white racism in America. There's not enough white racists in America to even have a rally without some underhanded, under the table support from leftist activist groups. But do you think the part of Team of America that needs to hear that story will actually buy it? Because they've been so conditioned that we're just always racist. There's racism all day, every day, around every corner in America. And it's just not true. And I feel like this proves it. Yes. Well, Brandon Gill, it's nice to finally have you on the James Show. People have been telling me, you got to have Brandon Gill on. Well, I've been trying and finally happened, so I appreciate your time, sir. Thanks for giving me 2 segments when I only scheduled you for 1. All right, appreciate it. You need to come back on a little more often, sir. I really appreciate that. All right, coming up next, you're going to hear some of the sound bites I was referring to in my conversation with Congressman Brandon Gill about the Southern Poverty Law Center. We're going to take a trip Good Garrett brought the flux capacitor. We're going to go back and you're going to hear Joe Biden. I know primary Garrett's here. I was just doing that for theatrical effect. Regular Garrett. But the sound bites are hilarious. Walk through memory lane with me. Now that we know that the Charlottesville was funded on both sides by leftist activists, and there wasn't even enough white racists with enough resources to even hold a rally without the help of leftist activists. Oh, it's going to be delicious. So the sound bites coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Boy, this indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center has a lot of tentacles to it. Follow me. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. If you're new to the story, it just broke a couple days ago. Kash Patel announced that there's been some indictments that have gone down on the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group that bills itself as America's premier anti-hate activist group. And what they've really turned into is just a typical leftist propaganda / indoctrination center. But it's more so the arm of the activist movement that actively seeks to destroy anything that is on Team Red. So let's go back. First off, here is from 2 days ago, FBI Director Kash Patel.
What we're here today is to announce the Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups.
All right, so that's Kash Patel 2 days ago. And then right after that, the interim Attorney General, Todd Blanche, was on Fox News, and he spilled the beans about a very important flashpoint in the public consciousness in America, and that's Charlottesville. And the reason why that is such a strong flashpoint is because that was the Unite the Right rally, where for the first time in your life, you saw a significant group of people who were at least labeled as white supremacists actually rallying in public. That's something you've never seen before. Oh, look, they've got the tiki torches. What does that mean? Have you ever seen anyone rally with tiki torches before that or after that? No. So it was really weird. And then the greatest thing for the left happened. An activist got themselves killed. And so now this is being used as a bludgeon to go after anybody who's right wing or perceived to not be on Team Blue. And it turns out both sides were funded by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Todd Blanche.
What about Charlottesville and the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally? Were they involved in that?
Yes. So what we allege in the indictment and what the grand jury found is that one of the individuals that they paid was one of the folks who helped organize that terrible event. And so so imagine what we're talking about, Laura. We're talking about an organization that actively came out and just screamed it from the top of their lungs.
So
now that we've established this, let's move on to the new information that I'm bringing you today about this storyline. Because that event, Charlottesville, let's go back in time here. That was the crutch. That was the excuse. That was the storyline that Joe Biden adopted on why he was running for president in 2020. After being vice president for 8 years and running around and being very embarrassing as far as cognitive function, he still run for president in 2020. Why? Charlottesville, the hoax?
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, the Ku Klux Klan, so emboldened by a president then in the White House.
Actually, they weren't emboldened by the president in the White House. They were funded and had logistical and resource support from the leftist group Southern Poverty Law Center. Now that we know this in retrospect, that sounds completely different. Here he is in an interview talking about why he ran.
When I ran this time, I wasn't going to run again. And I mean that sincerely. I had no intention of running for president again. And until I saw those folks coming out of the fields in Virginia carrying torches and carrying Nazi banners and literally singing the same vile rhyme that they used in Germany in the early 20s, or 30s, I should say. And then when the gentleman you mentioned was asked what he thought, and a young woman was killed, a protester, and he was asked what he thought, he said, there are very good people on both sides. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to be quiet any longer.
All right, now you knew at the time that that last part was a hoax. He didn't say that there's very fine people amongst the neo-Nazis. And I can play the whole 3 minutes for you if you want. I pulled it in case a caller calls in and challenges me on that, which 800-288-9227. I dare you. I'll make you look like a fool. But this also showed up in ads almost immediately. So let me get this straight. There's the Leftist Southern Poverty Law Center. They don't have enough hateful content coming from white racists to actually do anything with. They don't have enough to make an ad. But if they can talk a couple of these groups into showing up, while they also talk Antifa and Black Lives Matter into showing up, and they put them in a cauldron and make them fight, and the locals get the police to step back and let them hash it out and escalate things. Well, now we've got some material we can work with. How orchestrated does this all look in hindsight now that you know almost immediately after that staged rally in 2017 that Joe Biden now has material to use in his election ads?
We have a problem with this rising tide of white supremacy in America. And we have a president who encourages and emboldens. When he said after Charlottesville, there were, and I quote, very fine people on both sides. I said then it gave license and safe harbor to white supremacists and neo-Nazis and to the Ku Klux Klan. These words not only stunned America, but they stunned the world. And in doing so, he assigned a moral equivalence between those spewing hate and those with the courage to stand against it.
See, that's what it was all about. We had to go attach Trump to Nazis. And since Trump's not actually a Nazi, and since Trump doesn't actually support Nazis, and for the most part, Nazis don't actually support Trump, they had to manufacture Charlottesville. That whole thing was kabuki theater. It was just an event. That's wild. All right, so coming up, we're going to come back to the future, or come back to present time. You're going to hear how Chuck Schumer is defending the Southern Poverty Law Center in the light of these quite damning allegations. And actually, we had one of the networks, after they ignored the story the entirety of Wednesday, one of them actually reported on it last night, but it's almost a rush to defend them because they're buying the excuse. Southern Poverty Law Center was asked about this, you know, why are you paying millions of dollars to all these Nazis and white supremacist groups? And they're like, oh, no. We weren't funding them. These were paid informants. Yeah, that's the ticket. Like they're Serpico. Like they're doing some kind of undercover sting. What are you, arresting people now? That doesn't make any sense. To be a left-wing think tank that is supposed to document and observe, hey, you don't need paid informants. That doesn't make any sense. Even if you were paying for the information, you need to send them $1 million to tell them what? When the event's going to be, that they like burning crosses, they're really into sheets. It's such a lame, not believable excuse. It's amazing to hear both CBS News and Senator Schumer run with it, but you'll hear it next on The James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, we now have 1 dead, 9 injured in the shooting at the Mall of Louisiana. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. It's not our top story of the day, just a quick update on one of the undercurrents we have going on. So that's the latest on that. If you're just joining us right before the James Show started, there's a shooting at the Mall of Louisiana right outside of Baton Rouge where 10 people were reported injured, 2 critically. One of them is now dead and now 9 injured. And it was 2 groups shooting at each other. So we just think it was regular old street violence. So don't expect the gun control activists and the media to seize on this because it doesn't make you look bad. It makes them look bad. So we'll just sweep this one under the rug. We probably won't hear anything else about it in about 24 hours. But the story that I hope doesn't go away at all, Southern Poverty Law Center. They got hit with an indictment 2 days ago by the FBI Director Kash Patel, and it turns out that they've been taking money from donors, telling them we're going to use this to fight hate and hate groups, and using it to prop up hate groups. Why? Well, because if the hate groups go away, then the Southern Poverty Law Center goes out of business. There's an economic term called perverse incentive, and that is an incentive structure that has either undesirable results or in many cases, just the exact opposite results. And, people like to act like it's unexpected. But when this happens over and over and over, perverse incentives are something you have to look for. And if you miss them, you can't say, well, it's unexpected. No, you just didn't think it through. And so one of the best metaphors that they use for this is when there's pest control campaigns. They've tried in one of the stories I've heard, I don't know if it's true because no one ever told me which village, but supposedly there was a village in India that had a problem with cobras. And so they put a bounty. You kill a cobra, you bring its head to the local authorities, they'll give you a couple bucks. And so what would happen is they went out and they killed all the cobras they could real quick. And then some enterprising guys thought, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get some cobras and we're going to breed them and we're going to make dozens of cobras. And when they get big enough, we'll kill them and we'll collect the bounty. And then after a while, when no more wild cobras were running through the village and interest in the program started to wane, the cobra breeders would take some of the cobras that they created and release them in the village. Hopefully it'll bite somebody because then that program will never go away. And the program that was supposed to get rid of the cobras ended up perpetuating the cobras, actually expanding the cobras and the violence from cobras because there was now an incentive to do so monetarily. That's exactly what has happened with racism. Southern Poverty Law Center found out that they can keep raising millions and millions of dollars every year as long as there's enough of a boogeyman to scare well-intended, well-meaning people who think that they're helping. And so when race relations actually got pretty good until Obama got in office, as in almost 70% of America, when surveyed, how would you describe race relations? Either good or really good. It was almost 70% of the country. By the time Obama got out of office, it was less than 40%. And the Southern Poverty Law Center said, well, man, if we could just get some Nazis out there to scare people, if we could get someone hurt on the left, our donations will go through the roof. And they did. So they set up Charlottesville. They got somebody killed. They went and immediately fundraised off of it. Democrat politicians all put that in their campaign ads. And it was so good for business, they just had to keep it going. So now, let's look at how it's being defended. What is Southern Poverty Law Center's excuse? What is their alibi? What is their explanation for giving millions of dollars to Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists? Their story is almost as bad as Jussie Smollett. No. We weren't propping them up. We weren't funding them. We weren't helping them organize because we wanted to help them organize. These were paid informants. Yeah, that's the ticket. Why does a nonprofit need paid informants? You're not the FBI. You're not the sheriff's office. You're not the DEA. You're not busting anybody. These aren't law enforcement operations. That in no way, whatever your company does, whatever your organization does, it does not necessitate paid informants. So it's quite on its face a lie. It's self-evident that that's a lie. So let me give you a couple of examples here. Here's CBS News. They ignored it on Wednesday. They finally reported it on yesterday, but they're reporting the paid informants thing like it's not only real, like it's like it's common sense. Well, they're just doing paid informants, but Kash Patel is saying all this other crazy stuff. And the not believable excuse that it's paid informants is presented to the American public as if it's the self-evident truth.
The Southern Poverty Law Center made its name battling extremist groups, among them the Ku Klux Klan. But tonight it's facing federal charges of fraud, accused of funneling millions of dollars into some of those very same hate groups. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford has more.
40 years ago, the Southern Poverty Law Center bankrupted the Klan and later recovered millions from neo-Nazi groups, with lawsuits representing victims of violence. But Tuesday, the tables turned. The Justice Department charged the organization with fraud for allegedly misleading donors and lying to financial institutions by paying members of violent extremist groups millions of dollars to act as informants.
The SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
Including, the indictment alleges, a leader of the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, who, quote, attended the event at the direction of SPLC, made racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC, and helped coordinate transportation to the event for several attendees. But Law Center interim president Brian Fair said the group had long used informants and called the indictment a political attack by the Trump administration.
They have made no secret of who they want to protect and who they want to destroy. You have to wonder if this...
Attorney Scott Frederickson questioned the Justice Department's legal theories.
Can the federal government persuade a jury that the Southern Poverty Law Center was out there funding extremism for its own purposes? Manufacturing racism. That's hard to believe. Obviously, they'll have their day in court.
But there have been calls to investigate the Law Center for years. In 1995, the Montgomery Advertiser was the finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for articles alleging that the center was misleading donors and wasting their money. And more recently, critics say that its hate watch list of extremists includes many mainstream conservatives.
All right, now here's Chuck Schumer on the floor of the United States Senate yesterday defending the Southern Poverty Law Center. Also, just swallowing whole the garbage alibi that these are paid informants. No, we're not supporting Klansmen. We're just paying them for their information.
On the Southern Poverty Law Center, I just want to say a quick word about the deeply disturbing charges the Justice Department has brought against the Southern Poverty Law Center. These charges should send a chill down the spine of every American who cares about free expression and the rule of law in the Justice Department. It should send a chill down the spine of every American who cares about civil liberties and the fight against violence extremism. Let's be clear what this case is all about, is really about. It has nothing to do with alleged wire fraud or with the Southern Poverty Law Center somehow working in coordination with the KKK. That's ridiculous on its face. It doesn't pass the laugh test. It's about Donald Trump turning the Department of Justice into the Department of Vengeance, his own attack dog. He's done it time and time and time again, and when you think it can't get worse, it does. To attack the Southern Poverty Law Center of collaboration and accuse it of collaboration with their known enemy, the KKK.
Don't you like that fake laugh? Can you believe they're alleging this? Yeah, we have the bank statements here. Actually, there's like hundreds of pages that were released, and the nerds online have already gone through it. I can send you the screenshots. Can you believe that doesn't even make sense? Yeah, that's why it's a scandal, genius. Of course it doesn't make sense. That's why it's corrupt. That's why it's bad. Do you believe that Bro, you're not going to get any sympathy from the argument that, can you believe that the Justice Department is being weaponized against its political enemies? Oh, you mean like when Lois Lerner was slow walking the tax approvals for all the patriot nonprofits? Yeah, we know what it's like. We know what it's like to have political persecutions from the Department of Justice. You know, we saw it. 2024 was a great example of that. When Donald Trump went through the first 78 years of his life, no crimes. But after he announced that he was running for president again in this last cycle, all of a sudden, within one calendar year, in 4 different jurisdictions, you had 5 different cases, 4 criminal, 1 civil, and all of a sudden we found 92 charges within one calendar year to throw at the guy. But oh no, we can't be weaponizing the Justice Department against our political opponents. What? No one's buying that. No one's buying that. We're not a racist country. We haven't been for a very long time. In fact, when the Democrats stopped being overtly racist against blacks, it went away. And now Team Blue just needs to keep this whole racial narrative on life support, because if they lose the black vote, they lose their power. They lose the power of pretty much every major American city, most of them, not everyone. But think about that. If they lose the black vote, Dallas and Dallas County goes Republican. Harris County and Houston goes Republican. Austin and Tarrant County, whatever that county is, goes Republican. Mississippi, all of those places go Republican. Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, New Orleans, Atlanta. Black America goes Republican. It is over for the Democrat Party. That's the real story of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Is we have just exposed the theory that you and I have understood for a long time, that this isn't a racist country. Racism is just on life support by leftist activists to keep Democrats in power. And that's it. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, you're going to hear about some people who were persecuted by the Southern Poverty Law Center and their reaction to the indictment on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, James Show listeners. I am going through my QC Kinetics journey, and I want you to go with me, especially if you're a person who's dealing with pain. Did you play sports when you were younger and you had some injury? And it's different when you were a kid. You get an injury, you probably heal up in a month or 2 and never feel it again. But now in adulthood, if you get an injury, it just lasts with you almost forever. Well, it doesn't have to. QC Kinetics can help jumpstart your body's natural healing process with some breakthrough space-age technologies and change your life. Look, I have some lingering back pain. I played a bunch of sports. I've done a bunch of manual labor, hauled hay, played soccer in college. I was a mover. You picked up furniture all day. My back is worn out. Well, I went to QC Kinetics just a week ago, had my first treatment done, felt better already. And I don't know how to explain it other than in between the disc and in my lower back, it feels like someone put a coaster in there, like one of those old paper coasters from Bennigan's, just stuck it in there. So I'm doing a little better. And in fact, I'm so optimistic. I can't wait to go back and get the second treatment, because there was no downtime. It wasn't painful. They didn't put me under. There was no surgery. There was no knives. There was no anesthetic. I didn't have to miss work. I was in and out in 30 minutes. I can't wait to do it again. If you want to jump on the train and see if this will work for you, the consultation doesn't cost you anything. So get out your phone right now. Call 972-972-8610. Find out if QC Kinetics can put you on the path to a pain-free future. 972-972-8610. The Southern Poverty Law Center's been indicted. What are the other dominoes that are going to fall from this? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins, who have been rightfully up in arms about this story because, you know, it's kind of huge. And it's something that you have suspected for years. You've been told that you were wrong, and now you've just been proven correct. This is not a racist country. There's not enough racists to even fill up a rally. And so now that you've learned that it's been funded by donations that come from lefties in order to what? Trick your well-meaning neighbors into voting for Team Blue? It feels like if we could get the word out about this story and everyone could understand it, I think this would change a lot of people's mind. All right, coming up after this caller, you're going to hear from two people that were persecuted by the Southern Poverty Law Center because you know they're going to have some strong opinions about this indictment. But first, we go to Gene in Temple. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Good afternoon, sir. I would like to respectfully request you give out an auditory advisory. Last week or two, you talked about giving the microphone to some of these folks, and you know what they're going to say. I just got through throwing up and cleaning up after I listened to Chuck Schumer spew his diatribe. AOC, Waters, all of those folks, they're going to switch, they're going to lie, they're going to spin anything and everything they can. And I don't even know why we give these folks a microphone, because you know it's not going to be worth listening to. So if you give it us an advisory, that way we could go to the bathroom, go change air in our tires, or something useful.
Well, I think it's important to know what the other side says. I think it's important if you hear our side of the Southern Poverty Law Center story, it's worth being skeptical about my take on it because this fits too well into my narrative. In fact, I'm almost skeptical of this story because of how amazingly destructive this is to the narrative. Like, this is almost too good to be true. You know, and I don't want to fall for that, you know, because I noticed, like with the Jussie Smollett story, it was so utterly ridiculous because no one's ever thrown bleach on someone else in some hateful anti-gay / racist attack. Right? Has that ever happened once in your life, Gene? Has anyone ever put a noose on another human being as part of some sort of civil rights-based attack in your entire lifetime? Has anyone ever committed a violent crime in a MAGA hat in your entire lifetime? Is Chicago MAGA country? Would people who think that recognize a bit player from Empire, a TV show that's definitely not aimed at them? So it was totally not believable, but you had everyone run with the story for an entire month because it fit the narrative so damn well. This fits the narrative so well. I'm almost skeptical of my spot on this story. So I think it's important, Gene, that we at least hear what they're saying from their side. And it kind of bolsters our position to hear how weak Chuck Schumer's argument is supporting the Southern Poverty Law Center. But great call. That's good old Gene and Temple. Coming up next, the two people you're going to hear from, influencers Macy Gunnell and Andrew Colvett from Turning Point USA. He's gonna point out that Southern Poverty Law Center put a target on Charlie Kirk's back right before he got assassinated, and the assassin quoted the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So if the SPLC is a fraud, what about the people they've been persecuting? Are they going to get any justice? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. If you're just joining us, the Southern Poverty Law Center was hit with an indictment a couple days ago because they've been lying to their donors. They've been saying, you donate money to us and we will use it to fight hate groups, fight racism. And it turns out that through some shell companies, they've actually been using those donations to fund the hate groups. Why? So they can go get more donations next year. Here's a quick summary from Jesse Waters last night.
This was all a fundraising scam to smear Trump and make white supremacy seem like the biggest threat. The stuff SPLC was paying informants to do, commit crimes, raise money, organize hate rallies, is stuff an FBI informant would never be allowed to do because it's illegal and would jeopardize the case. If this is all true, the SPLC isn't just guilty of hypocrisy. They're responsible for years of damage to the social fabric of this country.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so here is a lady, Macy Gunnell. You may have seen her on Fox News. She's been on Newsmax. She's been on Real America's Voice. She was pointing out something that you may have already sort of felt but hadn't put into words yet. If the Southern Poverty Law Center is exposed to be the frauds that they are, clearly lying about what they're doing and supporting the very thing that they're against, doesn't that make you question some of these other activist groups?
So the whole SPLC thing is absolutely crazy, obviously. Not only does it make you question the legitimacy of every single political movement or rally we've ever seen on either side, but it also makes you question the legitimacy of every other group just like it, okay? I think there has to be immediate investigations into the ACLU, into the NAACP, into the Human Rights Campaign. Every single left-wing group out there, we already know BLM is freaking crazy, but them too. Every single left-wing advocacy group out there, we need to see where their money is going. Not only for our clarity as conservatives, but also for the clarity of these groups and their donors. Because if I was a left-wing advocate who found out that my money was going towards the KKK, I'd be a little...
Yeah, she cussed there, so I cut it off. You know, if you didn't already know this, let this cement it for you, because this is something people who go through libertarian economics have recognized for a long time. The worst thing that could happen to Black Lives Matter is if racism went away. All of those people would be out of a job. And more importantly, the real driving force, they would lose all of their power. The more racism there is, the more powerful Black Lives Matter becomes. The more powerful the Southern Poverty Law Center becomes. In fact, they've turned it around and they've scared so many people that they have $700 million in the bank. A lot of that's in the Caymans. Does that sound like a political activist group to you? The worst thing that could happen to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, all the people that are employed by the public housing system, the Section 8 system, all that, is if homelessness went away. The worst thing that could happen to the people who administer the food stamp program is if everyone could feed themselves without help. The worst thing that could happen to so many of these programs is the exact opposite of what their mandate is. Isn't that wild? So yeah, I'm glad other people are catching on, but here's another ugly monkey wrench in this. The guy's name is Andrew Colvett. He's with Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's outfit. And he was drawing a direct line from the persecution of Charlie Kirk by the Southern Poverty Law Center to his assassination.
With the SPLC in this instance. And, you know, they cornered the market on monetizing hate. But guess what? There is a supply and demand issue when it comes to hate. So they had to gin up more. They had to manufacture more hate. And when they run out of actual racist and KKK and Aryan Nation groups, guess what? They turn to Turning Point USA. And Jesse, I hope your audience realizes this and really internalizes this. They put Turning Point USA on the hate map at the SPLC, the quote-unquote hate map, in May of 2025. Less than 4 months later, Charlie would be killed by an assassin who said, quote, "Some hate can't be negotiated out."
People got killed because of these false accusations. A man got assassinated with children for these false accusations. An entire country has been slandered. And if you are on Team Blue and you happen to be listening right now, do you realize what the message is coming from Team Red to you right now? Our message is, see, we told you we're not racist. Why do you insist on holding on to the worldview that Team Red is racist or at least apologetic or indifferent to racism? Wouldn't you rather live in the world that is the truth, that we don't hate you? We're not driven by racism. You're going to have to accept the fact that we don't hate women. We don't hate all immigrants. We don't hate all minorities. We just want a smaller government. And if someone's telling you I'm a Nazi or I'm a racist or I'm a Klansman or I'm some sort of misogynist or hateful person, in order for you to not listen to my arguments on the issues, you're the one that's being manipulated. You're the one that's falling for the okie doke. And this world's much better. They don't want you to realize that I'm not a racist and all the listeners to WBAP aren't racist. All the people on Team Red aren't racist. Donald Trump's not a racist. Because then you would actually have to argue against us based on the merits of the policy positions of the Team Blue political party. And they can't win that argument. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, some lowlights from the California governor's debate next. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, let's check in with our friends over in California. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. They had a debate for the governor of California yesterday, and you know who wasn't there? Eric Swalwell. I thought he was winning. Wasn't he just winning a couple weeks ago? Did something happen? Did I miss something? No, but I've got, here's the smartest thing that was said at the California Democrat governor's debate last night. I pulled the audio just for you. Here it is. And then I have this other clip here. I'll admit, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a little bit, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's who can hate Trump the most. And they're not running against Trump. They're not even running for national office. But it seems like the first sentence of every answer is like, well, unlike Trump, and it's just amazing to see how effective this hate campaign has been, because hate is a very powerful emotion. They talk about, the only thing that Trump's hate is love. The record of human history shows that hate Trump's love on a fairly regular basis. Thank you very much. But I think this is perfect. This little soundbite here, it saves me from having to play all the other answers here, because the question is, do you think that English language proficiency should be strictly enforced for truckers? And the first thing out of her mouth is something Trump related. This is Katie Porter, who's one of the front runners. You remember her? She was the one who was yelling at her staffer, and the viral videos came out last year. Not that that's a deal breaker for me or anyone, but listen to this answer. This is just too perfect. It's ridiculous how silly these people have become.
Do you believe that English proficiency, language proficiency should be strictly enforced for truck drivers? You have 60 seconds.
I would absolutely fight the Trump administration, because the job of the California governor is to protect Californians. And right now, that includes protecting them from Donald Trump. Protecting Californians also includes enforcing traffic laws. And we've seen sometimes a need for oversight in California. For example, we have seen that the Department of Motor Vehicles was not enforcing rules around DUIs and drivers who had convictions for that. I am stunned that Mr. Bianco would say to Black and brown Californians and immigrants who are being terrorized and racially profiled that you have to get over racism. It's not something that you get over. It's something that you fight. And if he doesn't understand the importance of that, he has no business representing a state with the diversity of California.
No one is saying you have to excuse racism. We're just saying if you're going to be driving trucks, very heavy, dangerous trucks on our road for a living, you should be able to read the signs. Oh, we got to protect the people of California from Trump. No, you got to protect them from the people that are running over them, because they're not familiar with our laws, our customs, our mores, our traditions, and they can't read the signs. Isn't this crazy? Isn't this Who doesn't understand the common sense nature of that policy? Now, that doesn't mean you have to be for it, but to act like it's, who would even support this? Well, anybody who thinks the signs are important. If it's so important that you don't have to read the signs, then why are you putting the signs up? Can I ignore signs? So yeah, English proficiency for truck drivers. I love English proficiency for just about any job, because if you were born and raised here, you're proficient in English. If you're an immigrant who has come here and is assimilated, you'll pass. But if you're a guy who just came in on an H-1B scam, or you snuck in illegally, don't you think those people are far more likely to be represented in the non-English speaking part of our society? Isn't this a good way to weed out people who shouldn't have these jobs anyway? And if you didn't catch them with the fake social security number and the fake ID and the fake tax documents and all the other fake things they're doing illegally to steal jobs from Americans, you could at least catch them on the English thing. Oh, but they're racially profiling. Shut up. Trying to keep people safe. trying to keep truckers that can only read signs. Yeah, I'm a huge bigot. Go sell that to the Southern Poverty Law Center because no one is buying it anymore. You can stop now. And also, cool little event happened yesterday. Jerry Jones was having a press conference at the Cowboys headquarters. Bill Clinton showed up. WFAA has the report.
This is former President Clinton leaving the Star in Frisco after making a surprise appearance at the Cowboys news conference.
Here's we've got 3 different defensive schemes.
Here's our President Clinton coming through the door out here. He's coming up here to say hello to us.
Universal response was, did he just say President Clinton? Sure did. Only Jerry Jones, the marketing maven, in the middle of a press conference would spring a surprise visit from the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton. With both having such deep Arkansas roots, they've known each other for years. And after Jones nearly lost his balance trying to say hello to the president, they exchanged pleasantries in front of the cameras.
He's been a wonderful, not only president, but a friend over the years, and really happy to have you today.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you. Have a good draft day.
So I know a lot of people don't like Bill Clinton. I think he might be a terrible human being. I wouldn't let him babysit my daughters. But it's still cool if a former president shows up. I don't care who it is. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. If you can't think that that's cool, that one of the guys who was in charge of the most powerful, successful, awesome country in the history of mankind showed up. The embarrassing part, though, is he wasn't looking for the press conference. Bill Clinton was like, I thought I was going to the cheerleaders' locker room. Can you someone point me in the right directions? All right. All right, that's my Bill Clinton. That's all I got. Quick news update before we get out of here. Trump says the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire has been extended by 3 weeks. So it's a little bit of a progress there. You might get some more updates on it coming from the Mark Levin Show, who's coming up next. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Come on back tomorrow. In the meantime, if you need more James Show action, I'm about to get out of here and put up the podcast. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.